Okay, good morning. So we're up to Siman Kuf Ayin Ches Sif Gimel. Says the Mechaba, Yesh Mi She'omer She'im Hoya Began. So a person is in some sort of garden, and he wants to eat from all the different types of trees. Once he makes a bracha on the fruit of the first tree, he doesn't need to make subsequent brachas, because that one bracha will cover all the fruit he's going to eat. So long as his das was to eat from the other trees in that area. But if he goes to separate gardens, he's got to make a new bracha on each time, because that's considered the shinimokum. Once you leave the garden, you go to another garden, that's considered the shinimokum. Even though in that situation, even if you had intention, it won't help you because you're actually changing your location, you're going to a different garden, and therefore you need to make a new bracha. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Katan Lamed Zayin. So if you are in a garden and you want to eat from all the trees of the garden, you only have to make one bracha. Says the Mishnah Berurah, even if it's a very large field or something where you can't even see the ends of all the trees, it's a large area, then you only need to make one bracha. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, he's got a question. We said yesterday that if there's a large fig tree in the middle, and that's mafsik, so it divides up the garden. So if you want to eat on the east of the tree, and then you want to eat on the west of the tree, that's a shinimokum, you've got to make a new bracha. So why is this case any different? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Takan Mairi Shemukuf Mechitzas. Here's different, because we're talking about one area which is surrounded by fences. It's mukaf mechitzas. V'choshev kamoi mokum echad kanal, and therefore it's like one big garden. And if it's like one big room, one big garden, therefore, even though you can't see all the trees, one bracha on the first tree will cover all subsequent eatings of fruit. Okay, v'yesh ma'achronim shepirshu. There are those who explain the Mairi be'ein mukaf machitzas. Actually, our sif is talking about where it's not mukaf machitzas, it's not surrounded by fences. V'tam ha'hetza b'zeh mishum shoydaita l'zeh mitchila. The whole hetza is that he intended to eat from all the different trees. Like the Ramah says previously, that if he wants to go from one room within the same house to another room, that one bracha would suffice. Even though he can't see because of the barrier of the trees, it's like going from one ched to the next. And therefore, even if you go from one side of the te'ina tree to the other, a das to do that would work. Because the Mechabas expresses it as saying Yesh Mi She'omer, because this halach is not absolutely clear cut. The das should help in a situation where it's not mukaf machitzas. Do Orach shittas Rabbi, because that's only a das yochid, that's the das of the Ravid. Okay, Pseida. Lamed Ches. So the Yesh Mi She'omer, the first opinion of the Mechaba was that if you are intending to eat from different trees in one big field, you have to make one bracha and then you're sorted. That's so long as you intended to do that from the outset. It says in the Mishnah Berurah, like when you go from one cheder to another within one house, you need das for your bracha to continue. Like the Ramah said previously. I saw shemachalik bein mukaf mechitzas le'ein mukaf mechitzas. It depends whether or not the field is surrounded by a fence or not. So the mukaf mechitzas, if it is mukaf mechitzas, there is a fence or a hedge going all the way around. Lo bo'in daita befeirush. You don't need explicit das, because once it's considered one big garden, even if you weren't thinking too much, and you just have a fruit from one tree, then you can go further along and eat from another tree. And we assume the implied intention is to eat from all the trees, and therefore one bracha will cover it, even if you didn't have that in mind explicitly. Of course, if you only intended to eat from the first tree, and then you change your mind and you say, hey, you know what, there's another tree there, I'll eat from that one, that's different. Because then you would need to bench, so to make a bracha. However, if it's not mukav mechitzas, if it's just an open field and there are no mechitzas there, then you have to have explicit da'as to eat from the second tree. And if you didn't, that's the taz and the derech hachaim. Okay, so according to this Chai Adam, is it effective if you have das or not? So he says it depends if it's mukav mechitzas. If you've got a field with lots of trees in it, if it's mukav mechitzas, then one bracha on the first tree will help you for all the trees. If it's even if you didn't have that explicitly in mind, but if it's not mukav mechitzas, you need to have explicit das. Okay, lamates va'afilu. So this is going on. The next year, the last case of the Mechaber, the Mechaber began by talking about where you have lots of trees and you have one bracha on one tree, and then that covers the rest of the trees. But that's all that it's in one garden. Ava migan legan, the Mechaber said, if you're going from one garden to the next, that's a shinimakum, and you've got to make a new bracha each time, even if you had das to do so. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Lamates, Mishum shinimakum, because you go from one garden to the next, that's a shinimakum, to have a kamibayas, lebayas, because it's like going from one house to the next, to loy mahanidai to l'kula alma. If I'm eating an apple, and then I decide to, continue eating it in my neighbor's house up the road, well, I can have that in mind when I make the bracha. It doesn't help me because the shinimakum will break my bracha. Even if it's not mukaf mechitzas, each garden is a separate entity, a separate rishus. Is treated as if this is a case of two separate houses. And if they're separate gardens, it may be that I could see into the second garden. It doesn't help me because there's been a shinimakum, and therefore you should make a ber nefashos, and then make a new bracha in the new place. Someone who makes a bracha on a fruit to eat it here, and he didn't eat from it. So he's made a ber eitz, and for some reason he walked out to a different place. The bracha you made in place number one does not help you in your new place in place number two. That's only if you move from one house to the next. So if you made a bracha in the living room and then you don't eat for whatever reason and you're walking into the kitchen, then that bracha would suffice. You don't have to make a new bracha. For Mashenkein, if you made it in number 1 Princess Park Avenue and then you walked to number 17 Princess Park Avenue, then you would need to make a new bracha, even if you had a das to do that, because that's a shinimakum, that's considered a proper break. The cause of a Chai Adam, the Chai Adam writes, if you make a bracha in place in house number 1, and you could still be holding the fruit, and you haven't eaten from it, and you go to place number 2, house number 2, that is a shinimakum, and holding it doesn't help you. If you walk into that if you go from one cheder to another, you shouldn't have done that, but if you do, you don't have to make a new bracha. Okay, good. Dalet, I think there's time for Dalet. Im ochel pas b'makom echad. So if you eat bread in one place, v'chazar v'ochel b'makom acher, and then you eat bread in a second place, eina mevarich berachas hamazon el b'makom hasheni. You only have to bench in the second place. Like travelers, they eat in the place where they travel. In other words, they're constantly, they're continuing to eat as they travel. And then, when they finally finished, they'll sit in their bench. So you can bench at the end of the journey. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Mem. V'chozu v'ochel. V'af v'ledas ha'machaba le'el b'sif aleph u'beis. Also lechol b'makam ha'sheni al smach suda rishona. Remember we said, according to the Ramah, a bread meal continues. And therefore, you can nip out to mincha in the middle, come back, continue your Shabbos lunch, or whatever it may be. But according to the Mechaba, you've got a problem. The break applies also to bread meals. So therefore, says the Mechaba, after the das Mechaba el sif aleph base, also lechol makom hasheni al smach suda rishona. You can't eat in the second place as a continuation of the first meal. El tzorich levarich mikodim birchas hamazon al achila rishona v'hamoitzi al haba. The shit of the Mechaba was that you have to bench at the end of the first eating session, even a bread meal, and then you make a new hamoitzi on the second one. And das won't help you from one house to the next. You got to explain Asif to Mairi shekva ochal, that he's already eaten. He's already eaten in the first place, and then he for some reason moves. Then he goes on to the next place. So then he makes a bracha, but he doesn't have to make a birchas hamazon. Because it's still considered his makom. However, according to us who go after the Ramah, le'el b'sif beis, only lachatchila, just eat and bench and eat, wash and bench in the same place. But if you already move to the second location, mutter lechol kan al smach suda rishona, you're allowed to continue eating based on the original suda, on the original washing and bench, washing and making hamoitzi. And if your intention was to do that, that would work. So, for example, according to the Ramah, if let's say, I had a friend who Purim always used to go to his parents for the Purim Suda, and then he would join his parents-in-law for the second half of the Suda. He always told me he made sure to have the main course in the first place and get there in the second one to be in time for the main course. That was his goal. But he would wash in the first place. If he has das to do that, to continue the meal in the second place, according to the Ramah, that would be okay. So das would help even lechatchila to do that, if that's what he wanted to do. He would bench in the second place, right? So according to the Ramah, he would wash in the first place, have a kazais of challah, and then eat whatever he wants, and then he goes on to the second place, continues eating there, and bench in the second place. According to the Mechaba, that won't work. Yeah, that's what we brought in the Haggai yesterday. That in the Tish, that's what they do in the Tish. Ella, okay, let's continue. So we said, so in that situation, he makes a birchas hamazon in the second place. To kan husiyam sudasa, because that's the Mishmur says that's the end of his meal, and it's similar to what travelers do, because they're sort of eating as they're traveling, and they make a birchas hamazon at the end of their trip. Sifkat membeis halchi drachim teheim lekula alma mutter lohem lahalich v'lechol, because that's their way. They sort of eat as they're journeying. Va'af im ein roin mekoyim harishin machmas mercha kaderech. Even the original place where they ate could be well back, and they can't see the original place because they've moved on quite far. Or there's trees in the way. Because they were never really kover mokum in the first place. Because their intention was to eat as they were going. They were never oiker from their mokum because they were traveling. However, if they ate in the place where that was their intention, to eat in the place where they made hamoitzi, and then they changed their mind, ligmar sudasim derech halichosan, to actually continue their meal on the way, kolzman sheroin mekom harishan mutar lahem lechol tochashiv makom echad. So long as they can see the first place, the original place where they made hamoitzi, then they can do that. But if they can't see the original place because of the distance they've travelled, then it would be considered the shinimakum, and therefore they should really bench before they move on, or make a new bracha when they're in the new place. So when it comes to fruit, therefore, they would need to make a new bracha in the new place of a pas, and if it's a bread meal, gamkein, af ledas ha'hagal, according to the shit of the Ramah, Al kol panim lechatchila ein lohem la'akar b'mkoimon b'lo bracha k'mavu hasham. They shouldn't really move out without making a bracha. Ach, im etchila choshev lechol ma'at b'mkoimoi v'hashar lechol b'derech. But if the intention was to eat a little bit and then to continue, imagine you're on a hospital kosher meals walk, and you want to eat, and then you want to have your sandwich as you're walking, as you're going along. That was your intention. Then mahani af behefsekilonis. Then, even though you can't see the original place where you washed and have made hamotzi, doesn't matter. To rak mi bayis lebayis lo mahani daitul b'achilas peris. Because only when you move properly, there's a proper shinimokum, the das won't help you when it comes to achilas peris. Omnom. Im hischel lechel b'bayis v'holach l'derech haru kumo b'bayis l'bayis v'lo mahani daitul b'peris. When it comes to fruit, then changing location is a problem. And therefore, when you're at the new location, you need to make a bracha. But with bread, it would help you even lechatchila. Okay, so what have we seen? So if a person is traveling and he wants to make hamotzi in the first place, and then he wants to continue eating as he's going along, that would work certainly for a bread meal. And if he did not have that intention, he was nimlach, then he's got more of a problem. And with brain nefashos type things, it is inevitably a problem. Just by the way, if you're therefore on a hike and you go for a long walk and you've got a bottle of water, therefore you make your shahakol and you drink a shir, and then you make a brain nefashos, and then you carry on walking. The brachos of shahakol is not going to help you if you're half an hour later, because it's not going to last that long. You can't see the original place where you did it. So the best thing to do is to make a shahakol, drink your what you need, and then make a brain nefashos, and then make a new bracha when you're for the next drink. Say that.
When you're going from kiddush to kiddush,